There we go. And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents. This is Brothers of the Serpent podcast, coming to you live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, where we are nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. I am Russ Allen, brother of the serpent number one.
Kyle Allen, brother of the serpent numero dos.
So, harvest is starting. The winery is still not completed.
Yep.
We are going to, so last year we took a long break during harvest, but this year we're going to try not to do that. I can't promise a show every week, but we're going to try.
Yeah.
We were processing grapes today, and here we are. But today, actually, Kyle is going to give the presentation that he gave at the New York event.
Yes.
What would you say the topic is? I described it in the Discord as like Gobekli Tepe, connections to Egypt,
Yeah.
vases,
It's
scanning.
It's an analysis of stoneworking technology from
Right.
multiple different lenses. But basically focused on Gobekli Tepe and Egypt. Mostly Gobekli Tepe.
Yeah. There's well, I won't give it away. I was going to say there's some cool stuff. What else? Do we have anything else before you get started?
We can
Anything
deal
else?
with it on the back end, huh?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, let's just
All
jump
right,
into
let's
it.
get to it. Pillars of Civilization.
Okay. And let me get the share screen going here. Let's see. First, I only have so many hotkeys that work while I have this share screen up for some reason. All right, here we go. Pillars of Civilization. So yes, this is looking at the technological advancement in the deep past, which we're always talking about here. And this is really, like I was saying, a comparison of different technologies at Gobekli Tepe and the broader Taj Tepe civilization, from construction of architecture to the manufacturing of artifacts. And I'd like to illustrate how different levels of technological advancement might be overlooked or misinterpreted by archaeology. And because of that, we could be missing some of the evidence for a lost civilization, or at least a lost period of great technological advancement in our past. So this is Gobekli Tepe before it was excavated. It's a massive tell on the top of a hill in southeastern Turkey. It's pretty much farmland because it is completely covered in midden layers, which are rich in nutrient. But as you can see, all around it is just the barren rock hilltop, which is what all the other hilltops around it look like. So it's unique in that sense. It's got this massive mound on top of it. And inside this mound is a very complex system of multiple layers of architecture built on top of one another. And every space, every room, every enclosure was completely filled in with midden, or the occupation layers of human activity. Midden is basically the detritus and the refuse of people living in this area. So it's like 15 meters deep at the deepest of some of the numbers that I've seen, and the entire tell is like 300 meters in diameter. So it's just a very complex situation going on here. And as you can see, like all these different layers of rock wall construction all around, and then of course the megaliths at the very bottom, and then the rock cut or the rock cut or bedrock cutting areas down at the bottom here. So the dating of the site really began with typological or relative dating, which is essentially the matching of specific attributes of lithic points, like projectile points or tools. So when they got to the bottom layers of Gobekli Tepe, they found certain types of arrowheads. And because of the styles of those arrowheads, they knew that they were roughly 12,000 years old, because those arrowheads had also been excavated in many other sites all across the Levant and had associated carbon dates with them because they were found in strata or layers of midden that had carbon datable materials with those arrowheads repeated over and over. So very well established dates for the arrowheads. So when they got to the bottom, boom, they were like, these arrowheads are 12,000 years old. Now, they hadn't connected the architecture to those arrowheads or those dates yet, but eventually they did get carbon 14 dating from organic materials from the mortar of the rock walls. So that actually was the first time that the archaeologists were able to place the architecture itself at that date of 12,000 years ago, or roughly 12,000 years ago, with the lithics that they had already known the dates of. Now, what they never did was they never dated the megalithic architecture or the bedrock cutting to those dates. And as much as they tried, there is no finite way or definite way or high confidence way to date those megaliths. So they're relying on just these carbon 14 dates from the organic materials of the rock walls. So who are we talking about? These people are the pre-pottery Neolithic. And this period that we're looking at really is the pre-pottery Neolithic A, which was from roughly 11,600 to 10,500 calibrated years before present. Now, those numbers, I've seen multiple different ones. They shift here and there depending on what paper you're looking at. But this is, I think, a pretty decent guess at it. And this is roughly an 1100 year period, the pre-pottery Neolithic A. Then we have the early pre-pottery Neolithic B, a roughly 400 year period, and then the middle PPNB, which is about 600 years. So altogether, we're looking at roughly 2,000 years. And basically, this period was when all of the major architectural construction was considered by archaeology to be going on at Gobekli Tepe. 2,000 year period. So the pre-pottery Neolithic was identified in the 1940s, and they've been studied continuously for 50 years prior to the discovery of Gobekli Tepe by Klaus Schmidt. And the pre-pottery Neolithic had well-established dates from stratigraphic layers and all these other sites that they had been excavated in. They were well known for rock and mortar construction, and they had well-known lithic types, well-known arrowheads, well-known projectile points. But there was no bedrock shaping and no megalithic construction in any of these other sites that had previously established the pre-pottery Neolithic, which I find very interesting. So let's take a closer look at, this is building D at Gobekli Tepe. This is the most famous enclosure. They always show pictures of this. These are the two central pillars here, and then it's surrounded, these big black dashes are the pillars that encircle the enclosure. And the color map here is of the carbon dating of the rock walls. So all of these different colors are shading different rock wall constructions. And this dark one here, you can see this is PP and A. It's way out here. That's the very first rock wall. So it would have looked something like this. This rock wall would have been built roughly 12,000 years ago. This is the oldest rock wall. And it's just really strange to look at this building or this construction and say, this is a design. Like, this was the design of the builders. In fact, that is not what this is. And even archaeologists today even say that these pillars that encircle the central pillars have been shifted over time. So the second iteration of rock wall was this light blue, the pre-pottery Neolithic A to early PP and B transition period. So this is almost 1,000 years later, this second iteration of rock wall was built. And you can see in some cases it's going around these edges of these pillars, around the sides of these pillars now. Next we have early PP and B1. So now we're further dividing the early pre-pottery Neolithic B. They built like another bench-like structure going around the pillars, surrounding the bases of these pillars. And then finally, you have this early pre-pottery Neolithic B2, a little bit of additional work around some of the pillars, probably just some repair work. So basically, we're looking at a whole bunch of construction over almost a 2,000-year period just in this enclosure. And I think probably most likely what we would have really been looking at initially would have been something more circular like this in terms of the surrounding pillars. Now, this is not a perfect circle, but I'm just trying to position this. This is just a suggestion. Like, it would have been a larger circle. It would have been more circular and somewhat centered around these pillars. And I kind of tried to line this circle up with this outer original rock wall somewhat. But as you can see, the pillars have been shifted inward from this original position or suggested original position. And archaeologists agree that that is exactly what's happened over the years, that they say that the buildings were under continual construction for almost 2,000 years. So the way the archaeologists talk about it, they're like, they were still building it 2,000 years later before when they finally abandoned the site. But I think that we've seen tons of reuse and occupation by later civilizations as we've traveled through Egypt and other areas. And this is what this looks like to me, that these people occupied the site. And instead, what they were doing is repairing it when something destroyed it. So on the north side here, you can see how the wall has been flattened. And what's interesting about that is that the slope of the hill is actually coming from the north. So it makes sense, because these enclosures are so deep in this tell, that any piled up midden materials or retaining walls or other architectural elements up here to the north were much higher above this enclosure, and during an earthquake or a flood or something, they would have collapsed in to the enclosure. And that, I think, is why this northern wall has been flattened and the pillars moved so much further from what would have been a circular enclosure than on the southern wall. So we'll take a quick look at Building C. This is right next to Building D at Gobekli Tepe, and we see a very similar thing. But this one, interestingly, well, real quick, you can see the dark blue rock wall out here. This is PPNA, way out here. This dark blue. This is the original rock wall that's 12,000 years old that they say was the first iteration of construction around this enclosure. Now, what I find interesting about this one is that there are these outlier pillars, and some of these are absolutely enormous, and they're buried almost all the way to the top. Some of them, like this one on the lower right, almost completely buried still in later architecture. They have not been excavated because it's literally architecture that is surrounding them. But these, I think, may represent something more like what would have been the original circular enclosure. And over time, as you had slope slides and earthquakes and flooding in this area, and rock walls failed and collapsed, possibly, I think the pre-pottery Neolithic definitely reconstructed these areas and probably ended up dragging these other pillars that they couldn't stand up back here in these areas towards an inner circle. They built another bench, and you can look at this orange color here. This is early PP&B, middle PP&B transition period. This is the final stage of construction at Gobekli Tepe before it was abandoned forever. And I find that very compelling, these outer pillars here suggesting a position of the original circular enclosure. Once again, we have this flattened northern part of the circle. And again, the slope is coming from the north. So you still have some of these southern pillars that are far out in the reaches. Maybe there's still a couple there. So I don't know if that's the case, but it just seems to me that the slope slides coming from the north would have knocked down more stuff. And you can just see that this wall is so close to the central pillars, whereas the southern wall is much further away. So I think you just have more erosion coming from the north side. And so after looking at all that, it's finally clear why these artistic renditions of Gobekli Tepe just don't make any sense. Like, this is not a building design right here. Like, yeah, you go in here and then you can't get in, and then you go over there and you can't, and then you have to go, nope, can't get through that. Well, This makes no sense because these rock walls literally represent 2,000 years of construction. So this design over here on the left, where they're putting the building together, no. I mean, this whole thing is just nope. There's no way. That's not what's going on. And to take a closer look, you can see clearly that these rock walls are covering up artwork on the pillars. They're literally designed to just hold these pillars in place. I don't think that they are a part of the original idea of the megalithic architecture and rock cut aspects of Gobekli Tepe. So now we're going to go through, this is building C again, and I want to go through in detail some of these elements. Now look at this. This pillar up here is literally broken. The bottom half is broken off, and it is standing on rock wall construction. So this is obviously not original. This is a broken pillar that has been moved in. And you can see behind it there, that massive pillar in the back. This is one of the ones we were looking at that's an outlier pillar, another one here. So these are much further away. But if you look closer at the rock wall here, you can see clear discontinuity in the rock wall construction all the way around this pillar, as though an alcove was prepared for this pillar to be brought in and stood back up, and then the stones were stacked until its height matched roughly the height of the other standing stones. Again, you see it over here. A broken pillar, the bottom is broken off, and it's standing on cobblestones. And if you look at the rock wall all around it, there is a clear discontinuity in the rock wall construction style, suggesting again that an alcove was prepared for this pillar to be stood back up during a restoration effort. Again, we see it here. This might be a whole pillar, but it's possible also that this one may have been broken just right at the base. It is also surrounded by rock walls, and you can see on the right, there is a discontinuity again in that rock wall construction, so suggesting an alcove prepared for placing this pillar. So if the pre-pottery Neolithic was capable of making these pillars, creating these pillars, moving these pillars, standing them up, why were they surrounding them in rock walls when they were capable of doing this, this is the central pillar, which is seated directly into the bedrock. That raised platform there is part of the bedrock, and there's a hole excavated into that bedrock, and the pillar is freestanding. So why would they be doing all of this rock wall work around these pillars if they were capable of doing this? It just looks like two different industries, as to steal a phrase from Ben, a tale of two industries. And I think that the pre-pottery Neolithic was doing their best to restore and maintain this site. Okay, so yes, what I am saying is the pre-pottery Neolithic definitely occupied the site. They are responsible for accumulation of all of that midden. The massive amount of midden material that ultimately buried Gobekli Tepe is pre-pottery Neolithic midden. It has all of their refuse, it has all of their tools, it has everything about their lives. In all of the other pre-pottery Neolithic sites, it's the same. They are responsible for that midden. They're also, I think, responsible for renovations and repairs of the site, and they're responsible for building rock walls, and they made projectile points, which is the next point. These are the projectile points of the pre-pottery Neolithic. And these things are beautiful, and I love these things, but even though they are beautiful, they are also very crude in terms of lithics. And the style here, which I could go into great detail about, but I'll spare you and just say that they basically prepare this core called a blade core, and it's just prepared in a specific way where one end of it has a certain type of curvature. They kind of flake it to get it this particular curvature, and then they can strike that in. So the stone would be striking this core from the bottom here, and these single long flakes called blades would come off in one strike. So this is a very rudimentary style lithic technology that has been around for longer than Homo sapiens. I mean, this has been going on for at least 300,000 years with little to no advancement. And the pre-pottery Neolithic were not much different in their use of this lithic type. So here's some of their lithics from the Schunlerfen Museum, and you can see that they did retouch the bases a little bit so that they could haft them to shafts or whatever. So, and here they are. And I think this is probably a fairly accurate depiction of the pre-pottery Neolithic in their butt flaps about to stab. I think this dude's wearing some aviators. That's pretty cool. But anyway, they're about to stab this animal with these very rudimentary points. And then after that, you know, one of them's going to be like, hey, dudes, let's go flatten some bedrock and stand up some megaliths, bro. I don't think so. It's possible, but it seems unlikely. So I just want to compare these lithics, the pre-pottery Neolithic, to the Clovis. Now, these Clovis points are from the USA, and they are contemporaneous. They're 12,000 years old, right? We're talking about these people existed at the same time. And look at the style of the Clovis points. Look at the advanced lithic technology that they had. A very particular stylized point. They had a very special hafting method where they fluted these points, and I've heard that they were able to quickly haft a point onto a spear. And then I've also heard one of the purposes of this fluting technology was so that they could take down these enormous animals like mammoths and things, stab the animal, pull the spear out, the point would stay in the animal. And then they could put another one on there and stab it again. I don't know if that's true. I've heard that from probably experimental archaeology, but in any case, the Clovis points are incredibly advanced compared to these pre-pottery Neolithic lithics, which have been around for 300,000 years with literally no advancement. So the pre-pottery Neolithic is suddenly responsible for making these when they had not advanced their lithic technology at all. It's just so strange to me when you look at these two things side by side. Look at the incredibly rudimentary nature of these lithics next to these amazing megaliths and rock cut elements with highly advanced iconography. I think that we may be looking at two different technological abilities in working in stone. Okay, so we're going to switch gears for a minute. We're going to talk about the vases and the stoneware at Gobekli Tepe and the Taj Tepe. That one was alabaster. This one is a basalt vessel. There's some limestone back there. There's a big limestone one. So they had a stoneware industry as well at Gobekli Tepe. And I think that these are most likely handmade. I mean, these all look handmade to me. They're just grinding them out over time. They don't look turned. In other words, you can see the imperfections. So it wouldn't appear that these things were turned like we would see in some of the pre-dynastic vases that are so circular. But these are basalt, so they are made from a hard stone, and it's pretty cool, this little geometric etchings they have in the sides of them. And these are also in the Schunlerfen Museum. And very nice. I think these probably would have been absolutely beautiful when they were brand new. Another site that I've recently been looking into is this place called Gobleki Tepe, and it's actually the oldest of the Taj Tepe sites, and it's pre-end of Younger Dryas. I can't remember the exact dates, but look at the stoneware coming out of this place. I haven't been able to find better pictures than these highly pixelated ones, but I'm hoping to get a look at some of these a little better. This one here, I think this one needs to be scanned. That is basalt. That is incredibly thin. It looks very circular, and I mean, who knows? It's just interesting. We don't know until we gather more data on these things, but that's pretty incredible for a handmade piece.
Just to be clear, stoneware is actual pottery.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Stone wares.
This is
Two
like
words.
stone vessels.
Stone vessels.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is some more that I found on Wikipedia. I think these are actually in the Met, from what I can tell. Probably in the basement somewhere. Calcite, alabaster, 8th millennium BC. These are all pre-pottery Neolithic B, or at least dated to that area. A bowl of granite with this little tripod base, 8th millennium BC. More alabaster pots, these with some lug handles showing up there. This one on the right looks pretty nice. That one needs to be scanned. We should scan that. These are getting near the end of the pre-pottery Neolithic B period, 6500 BC. And we're at 6000 BC at the very end of the pre-pottery Neolithic B. And we got these tripod bases that show up again, which I find very interesting. And now we got a lip on this one. Very stylistically like the vessels we find in the pre-dynastic vessels in Egypt. So I just find these stylistic points. These are typological aspects to these vases, these little tripod bases, and we've got 3 different tripod bases here that are thousands of years apart, 8th millennium BC to the 6th millennium BC. So that's strange that you would have some kind of continuous stylistic type for that long, but who knows? It's possible that these were found in younger layers and they're actually being attributed to younger cultures than they actually belong to. They may belong to older cultures here as well. Okay, so how do we determine relative high technology? So we're talking about stoneworking, we're talking about lithic technology, we're talking about architecture and manufacturing. So what I mean by this question is, if you have 2 objects that you're comparing together, what are the criteria for determining which one represents a higher technology? Does that criteria change from different types of objects? And so we're going to take a look at some examples just to illustrate the point, or the types of questions maybe we should be asking about these things. So this is a modern handmade stone plate and modern plastic plates. So which one represents higher technology? Obviously, it's the plastic plates. But if you look at this from the lens of future archaeology, it's possible that future archaeologists wouldn't know anything about oil or refineries or plastics at all. And if they found these, they may not realize that they represent an extremely high level of manufacturing ability and chemical technology, chemistry, all that sort of thing. But in fact, they do. If these future archaeologists were to scan these 2 items or study their geometry, they might find out, it's possible, maybe not with this particular handmade stone plate, but it's possible that the plate would be more precise, even though it was handmade, than these plastic ones with their little wrinkles and everything in them. So we've got more advanced and yet more precise in this example. Another example is a ring handmade from silver and a machined bushing from stainless steel. So which one is more advanced? Obviously we know, but would future archaeologists even realize that the bushing was a bushing, or would they might mistake it for another ring of a lower quality because it would probably be rusted and looking pretty bad by the time it was found by archaeology? Even though it's stainless steel, still rusts, folks. However, if they had sufficient technology to analyze the material, they would find out it was stainless steel. And then they could consider, well, maybe it's from a meteorite or whatever, so it doesn't necessarily represent a higher technology. But if they could analyze it further, perhaps they would find out, oh, it's not meteoritic. So then they would know it did represent a higher materials technology than this silver ring. And then if they were to scan them, they would find out that the bushing was far more precise and circular than the handmade ring, even though a handmade ring can actually get very close to circularity. So yeah, in this case, you got more advanced and more precise on this side. And here's a great example of the actual problem. We have two vases here from the Petri scans. One on the left is a limestone, hardness of 3 to 4. Number 2 on the right is porphyry with a average hardness of 6 to 7. So which one represents a higher technological advancement? I think I would have guessed that the one on the right was represented a higher technological ability because it's such a much harder stone and it would have been much more difficult to create this object than the limestone one. I mean, everyone can carve a limestone vase. That's a piece of cake. We all know that. But in fact, when it was scanned, it was found that the limestone vessel was far more precise by an order of magnitude, actually, than the one on the right. So I find that very interesting that this, we normally consider the softer stone. That one's alabaster. This one's made of limestone. It's pretty easy to carve. And so a less advanced civilization could do it, but it doesn't mean that the more advanced civilization might not also use that material. So it's important to consider. The harder stone one may also have been turned, but it does have some visible flaws in its geometry. Like you can see with the naked eye when you're holding it, you might be able to tell that the lip there looks a little wonky. So it's just not as advanced as a specimen as this limestone vase. And so then we'll go back to Gobekli Tepe here. When I'm looking at these two artifacts, I cannot help but think that these are two different levels of technology. And the higher technology is the one on the right, the pillar. But these two things were found in the same place. And so, because they were found in the same place, they were made by the same people. Thank you, archaeology. I'm not trying to give them too much of a hard time. Obviously the pre-pottery Neolithic lived there, so it's understandable that they attribute these to the same people, but I just don't see what I would consider the advancement in their stoneworking reflected in their lithics, which is very strange to me that you would advance that far with your stoneworking and not change your lithics one bit when it is responsible for all of your sustenance. That is what these people lived by. So it's very strange. Okay, so the next bit here is about the Helwan point. The Helwan is one of the 4 main lithic types found in the oldest layers of Gobekli Tepe, dating it to 12,000 years ago. And what's really interesting about this particular point is that Helwan is located in Egypt. It's literally right across the Nile from Saqqara, where, of course, you have the Step Pyramid, and underneath which is a whole bunch of stone wares. Stone vessels. And so I find it very strange that Helwan is in Egypt. What is the Helwan point doing at Gobekli Tepe? And even Klaus Schmidt asked this question when he was digging and excavating Gobekli Tepe, and he actually did he took some time to do some research on the Helwan point and went to Egypt to try to find everything he could about it, and he wrote a report about it. But there's just not a whole lot of data in Egypt about the Helwan point. This is a little blurb from a paper that I found on this Helwan point, and the author basically says that the Helwan's point, or the point in Egypt, has been neglected by the Egyptian archaeology, while Helwan points have been a focus of study in the Levantine archaeology. It's not really where the focus is in Egypt. Most of it is, this is way, way before the dynastic Egyptians, and so it's just not really that big of a concern. You can see this, what is considered to be the diffusion process of the Helwan point here, starting way up here, and I don't know where that is, Turkey or Syria somewhere, and coming all the way down, and then there's sort of this just big empty area where there's no data, and then it just appears in the Nile Valley. So this is what in green here is the Fertile Crescent, the pre-pottery Neolithic, and basically as far as their extent goes, And then there's just this massive void where there is insufficient data. And I just find it interesting that right near, or this Helwan point is found right near this massive carving out of limestone of a large animal. And up here in Gobekli Tepe, we basically see almost the exact same technology at play in the megalithic architecture and bedrock cutting. This is Karahan Tepe, and this guy is definitely cleaning it up. And you can just see here that how much of this bedrock was cut away. Just an enormous amount of bedrock is cut away. And I mean, this is barely scratching the surface of this site of Karahan Tepe. Who knows how much material was removed from this mountain, how much limestone to flatten these areas, and then of course create these megaliths. And here you have the T-pillars like sticking out of the living rock. I mean, these people were sculptors. They were carving an extremely advanced iconography. And I just can't help but make that connection to the Sphinx. This is exactly what this thing is. It was cut literally out of the limestone rock. It was shaped into a form of an animal. Now, I think the biggest difference here is the size of the stones that were removed from the Sphinx enclosure, because they are absolutely enormous, and they represent something, a far greater feat in that sense than the stones that were moved at Gobekli Tepe. But what just really fascinates me here is the possibility of a connection, because of course, as you all know, Robert Schoch dated the Sphinx enclosure to 12,000 years. That is when the Gobekli Tepe was, at least the first rock walls were built there. And that is the age of these, the oldest lithics. And I just love this idea, you know, really, I think originally suggested by Graham Hancock, that perhaps an older civilization that had a higher level of technology, like right at the end of the Younger Dryas, some cataclysm happens, they almost die out, and some of them take refuge, like these people in Egypt that possibly created the Sphinx 12,000 years ago, may have taken refuge with a small group of hunter-gatherer types that had a presence there in Helwan, and also a larger presence over in the Levant, and maybe traveled with them and perhaps influenced them or oversaw the construction of some megalithic architecture and rock cutting at Gobekli Tepe and the Taj Tepe civilization. And then at some point, their technology dies out with them, and the pre-pottery Neolithic revered those sites so much that for the next 2,000 years, they did everything that they could to stand every one of those stones back up and rebuild those enclosures. So I just love the idea that there might be a connection here between these different stoneworking technologies 12,000 years ago. And that's it.
Perfect.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. Oh, man.
All right.
The Helwan stuff is cool. Didn't you say that Hugh Newman mentioned this to you?
Yeah, he actually... he mentioned it in a podcast we did together when we were in London.
Yeah, he popped into the live chat. I don't know if he's still in there, but yeah, shout out to Hugh.
Shout out. It's Katawi recorded a podcast there, and Hugh starts talking about it, and I'm like, I must have been thinking about something else. It just went right over my head, dude. I didn't even realize it. And when I was talking about this to Katawi, he was like, hey, check this out. He showed me a clip of the podcast. And I was like, oh my God. Hugh was onto it.
But then Yusuf mentioned it to us.
So I was just spitting out the names of the different points that were found down there. And Yusuf was like, Helwan, that's in Egypt. I'm like, what? Yeah.
Yeah, that is a crazy connection.
Mind blowing. So
yeah. The possibilities that, I mean, you know, there's the possibility that the people that made those points did make Gobekli Tepe, and they're also associated with the Sphinx or with its making or whatever.
That's another possibility. I mean, it only takes one Da Vinci. You know what I'm saying? This is the other thing I try to consider, is that like maybe
there's just like
some special group there that was just like, check this out. But I still, even when I start to think that way, I'm like, no, because they would have also made ceremonial flint arrowheads.
Right.
They would have shown their artistic style in their arrowheads, like the Mesoamericans did with these giant dragons and all. They were amazing stone artists.
Yeah.
And they did their art in every type of stone.
There are ceremonial lithics found in Egypt. I don't know how old they are, but
Absolutely.
the museum is full
They're
of them.
freaking amazing.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen one
Yeah.
at Gobekli Tepe or the Taj Tepe layer civilization or the pre-pottery Neolithic.
And those
for that matter.
those long flake points are just everywhere on the ground there,
Yeah.
and you can find them.
You can mass produce them. So another thing that I was going to put in, I actually had a longer form of the presentation, which I had to shorten. But one of the ideas I was going to throw out there was like, is this a mass production effort? Like, did they use this style? Did they develop it for mass production because they just didn't care, and they were just like, it's like the plastic plates for them. They're just like tink 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 tink, just knocking out all these arrowheads real quick, no time spent on it. But that doesn't make sense because this particular lithic style has been around for forever. Like it was used by pre-Homo sapiens.
Yeah. My other problem, I mean, I don't know, it's, you would have to look at every lithic they've ever found there, but where are the actual stoneworking tools?
So the stoneworking tools are called burins. They're basically a chisel. We've found a couple of them. We just didn't know what they were.
The thicker ones?
It's like a flat rectangular piece like this, and then it has like a lot of times they have like a step fracture on the side of it, and then there's a point. It just kind of comes to a flat point on the other end.
Okay.
Like this, and they say they're chisels, and for sure you could carve limestone with that. But there should be hundreds of thousands
like, where
of them.
are they? Yeah.
I tried to find this out. Does anywhere, you know how they say like there are thousands and thousands and thousands of these projectile points all over that midden. Not very many burins.
Right.
Where are all the freaking burins?
Where are the stoneworking tools? Yeah.
Yeah. They're in the quarry. You know, they didn't work the stone at the site. Come on. They had to work the stone at the site.
Yeah, I mean, the carving. You do the carving at the quarry?
But the pre-pottery Neolithic
maybe
used burins at other sites that don't have any megaliths. So those artifacts are there also.
Okay.
They were making stonewares. They were making rock walls. They were making mortar. They were grinding stones and stuff. They had grinding, basalt grinding stones. So I don't see that there's like suddenly hundreds of thousands of burins at the sites where they did tons of megalithic architecture, and then like only a handful at these other sites where they didn't do any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any statements about this in the papers. I've been looking for it. So all I can do, what I'm doing, I think is more just typological. Like I'm doing like a typological dating almost, which is to say these don't come from the same period.
Yeah.
Because they don't even match. Like they don't match anything that happened up until that point anywhere.
Yeah.
So unless it's some kind of Da Vinci type character that just shows up, and which is basically what Graham is suggesting with his narrative. That
the Da Vinci character comes from a different
comes from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just influences these people. But the other interesting thing is that they never achieve. One of the reasons why I showed the diagram of all the pillars being dragged in was because they never made another pillar. The pillar was made. And then 2,000 years later, they were still standing it up and propping it up on the rocks. They didn't make a new one. And there's an even better picture. I don't know why I didn't put it in the presentation, but of enclosure D, the most famous enclosure, where literally it's just the top of the T pillar, and you can see just starts down the side, and it's literally stacked and stacked on all these rocks they stacked up to get it up there. And it's like, come on, man. If they were capable of making these pillars, they would have just made another one.
Yeah.
But they didn't. And you can see in some of the pre-pottery Neolithic B settlements, like the domiciles that they started building way, way later, near the end. They all have like a little tiny T-pillar inside them that's just kind of just crappy. It's not
right.
very well made. But I think it was like everyone, wants I don't know, a theater in their house, and it's like small.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not, there's something like that we all do. It's like, oh yeah, you got to have, this in your house, but it's like not the real one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They kind of all had that like central pillar in their homes.
It was all the rage.
It was all the rage. 2,000 years later, baby.
You gotta have a tea in your house.
That's the other thing that just gets me, is that like the archaeologists look at this as though they were continuously building those enclosures. I'm just like, no.
No.
Like they say they were never finished. That's one of the direct quotes from the lead archaeologist. The buildings were never finished. They were still building them 2,000 years later and modifying them. And I'm just like, no. They may have never been finished, but the idea that they were being built for 2,000 years is ridiculous.
Yeah.
All of those pillars were there in the beginning.
I still think that it's also possible that the original bedrock cutting, platform making, and central pillars is also different from the pillars that surround them. I mean, there's even a technical ability difference in those. The central pillars, especially with enclosure D.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one with the huge ones that are broken, right? Isn't that D?
Enclosure C has
C.
the massive central pillars that are broken.
It's C. Those two pillars are actually, like, they stand out as being better than every other pillar in the entire site.
Yes, they do.
And it's just a shame that we don't know what they would have looked like. I would like to see a reconstruction. Like, I know the fragments are lying around on the ground, but I would like to know what they originally looked like. But they stand out as being much better than every other pillar. But then again, the big central pillars in enclosure D also stand out as being better than the pillars that surround it, for the most part. Sometimes work on the outside ring, but for the most part, I think the central ones are the highest quality. So you can imagine, you get your best guys working on the central pillars.
Yeah.
And then the apprentices and the noobs are working on the pillars on the outside. I don't know. Or maybe it's a teaching thing, like Graham has suggested before.
Some of those outer pillars are freaking amazing. Like that massive one that's in enclosure C, that's like right when you get up on the deck and you're looking down, it's like you just see the top of it and it has that little groove in the top.
Yeah,
that one's just absolutely enormous.
Yeah,
and then the one across
with the cat on it,
way over there, has like all the, I don't know what they are, geese or something, and the boar and all this stuff, and it's like almost buried. They're just beautiful.
Yeah,
huge. So I don't know. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to see those because they're completely covered up in architecture.
Yeah.
They're not buried in just rubble. For those out there who are complaining that the place isn't fully excavated, it's architecture. So, to actually reveal that pillar, you have to destroy all of the architecture, which I'm fine with. A little bit of destruction.
Yeah.
I'm fine with a little bit of destruction.
Yeah.
To see these things.
And
but
if you remember, I think it was it Magicians of the Gods, where Graham talked about, maybe it was Magicians, where he talked about going out there. Maybe it wasn't I don't remember which one it was, but he talked about going out there and finding out that pillar had been basically covered up.
That was the vulture stone.
42, yeah.
So they had dug out the vulture stone.
They had completely excavated it and then covered it back up.
Stacked the rocks back up.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to find out man, dude.
It's like they wanted to see what the pillar.
You know what that's making me think? That all those little discontinuities in the rock wall construction may have been the archaeologists, completely uncovering the pillar to see the iconography and then burying it.
Yeah, could be.
Or restacking the rocks in there.
Yeah.
Dang it! Ruined my presentation. Freaking archaeologists.
Yeah, you're right. Some of those discontinuities in the walls could be
But
that.
they definitely
We don't know how much of those rock walls have been reconstructed.
Yeah, some of them definitely look like there's some modern work in there.
Yeah.
But there's some that look, I don't think that they did anything with it, you know, like
Yeah.
that would be really tough to find out. I mean,
We would have to talk to
you'd have to be able to look at like the detailed logs, and it's just like, oh my God, you know,
Yeah.
who knows
Yeah.
what they did. But yeah, I remember Graham talking about that the vulture stone was uncovered,
The first time you went.
and then they had stacked the rocks back
Yeah.
up
Then
on
the
it.
second time you went out there, it was covered up.
It
Yeah.
was like reburied or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's not really reburied. I guess they had buried the base of it or something.
Yeah.
They're probably trying
the
to hold
bottom
it
part
up.
of it is covered up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's even in the model, right? So we got to go to the museums this time, and in the museum they have the full size model of enclosure D,
Yeah.
and the vulture stone is covered up in the model. I'm like, come on, like at least show us the whole thing in here.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, I specifically went over there to look at it, and they've just basically done an exact recreation of what it looks like right now in the field. And so the
Yeah.
vulture stone is buried in the rock wall.
Yeah.
So you can't see the lower 2/3 or whatever of the carvings.
It was looking at me the whole time while you were talking.
Oh well.
Oh well. Stupid 2-camera system.
Well, it's a great presentation, man.
Thank you.
And you have like a longer, more detailed version.
Well, the original version is longer and more detailed, but I never finished it. I just kind of ran through it one time, and I was like, "Oh, it's too long."
Yeah.
So this one that I just did has all the completed things.
So you're hiding stuff from us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just when I realized it was too long, I deleted a whole bunch of slides, trying to hide things, the important stuff. Deleted all the best slides.
Yeah. I know we already talked about this, but the Helwan, yeah, I'll take
Guild
one.
Stranger.
Guild Stranger beers.
Okay, this is Wonder Crusher. Is that what that says? It's bubbly letters. I can't read it.
Yeah, Wonder Crusher.
And then we have a Beach
says-
Eagle.
It says gigantic flavor. Oh yeah.
This is a Mexican style lager. So you can take whichever one you like.
I don't know about gigantic flavor. Yeah, it's too gigantic for me.
Guild Stranger. Thank you so much, bro, for these beers.
That's okay. This is pretty good.
No, that's good. Yeah, I do like these. It doesn't say what it is, but
Cheers to you guys,
yeah.
all of you in the chat. Thank you for joining us.
Cheers, people.
Yep.
I'm using my new Ozark koozie.
Well, what else would you add to that now that you've gone through the presentation, you have other thoughts?
Yes, I've already found another site in another, I think, I guess it's a pre-pottery Neolithic A or B site. I think it's a pre-pottery Neolithic B site. It's in the southern Sinai. So while the Helwan point vanishes as it's approaching the Sinai Peninsula, there is pre-pottery Neolithic B artifacts there. So it's like the diffusion comes down, like the Helwan starts up in Turkey some 12,000 years ago, or maybe even older. I don't know actually how old the oldest Helwan is. But it's supposedly it's coming down and diffusing down into headed towards the Sinai, and then there's just like no data there. But then there's pre-pottery Neolithic B, a big settlement down, actually a number of big settlements down there in the southern Sinai, and I'm trying to find the exact location of these places. there's a few papers on them, and the papers are not really concerned with the lithics. They were talking about like the bones that they found, the animal bones, and they were like, they had these animals and those animals, and they were killing these animals, and that's what the paper was about.
Okay. About their hunting practices.
Then it shows there's a sketch of a top-down look at the village, and it's all these little circular, small circular dwellings with little walls, little rock walls, but the interesting thing about those is they were using flagstones, and they're standing the flagstones up like this. We got to get down there. I just am like, probably no one's been there I think these papers were in like the 30s.
What was the name of the place we went to in Egypt with Ben and Yusuf that had all the circular?
That was
I can never remember the name. But those were flagstones too, but they were flat. They were
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they made little circular
that no one can get in.
Yeah.
Right? The entrance
had a little keyhole.
Yeah. Strange. What a weird place.
Tombs,
yeah, because that was the other thing is we looked all over the place and didn't find any sign of.
There's no midden there.
No midden, no lithics.
That was really strange. So I was starting to believe it at the end there.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Because when at first we're like, what is tombs out here in the middle of nowhere? This is bullshit. And then we walk around, we're like, wow, no one lived here.
Yeah. That was crazy. Or we just didn't find it.
Yeah. It might be, it could be buried under.
It's just crazy that there wouldn't be the first flake outside any of
I
those.
found like one piece of flint down in the draw, and that was it. Yeah.
Ask Grok now, because I know he knows.
Ben knows.
I've talked to Grok about it many times.
Ben was in the chat. Maybe he remembers what it was.
He doesn't remember what it is. Hey, no, we weren't talking. Don't start talking to me, dude. Do not. Yes,
you got Grok on voice mode?
Yeah, what are you doing on voice mode? Get out of voice mode, bro. He's listening to me right now.
Oh, man.
Shh, don't even whisper.
You put him in whisper mode.
Oh, God. He starts whispering. Okay.
It's classic SnakeBros, folks.
What the hell, dude?
Okay, while he's looking that up, to go back to the point I was making about the Helwan points, because he never lets me get all the way to the point.
Sorry.
It's funny. Every time I bring this up, he interrupts me part of the way through, and then everybody thinks I'm arguing that the Helwan people made the Sphinx. I'm like, no, there's two possibilities, that those lithics are associated with the people that spread from that area of Egypt next to Cairo all the way up through the area of Gobekli Tepe and elsewhere, and that they are in the same time period as the people who built Gobekli Tepe. In which case, if those people did build Gobekli Tepe, they were capable of making the Sphinx. I mean, now I know the Sphinx is like enormous in terms of rock work compared to what happened at the Sphinx, but I mean, compared to what happened to Gobekli Tepe, but not really, because what we think of when we think of Gobekli Tepe are the T-pillars, which is a large undertaking, but the biggest amount of rock work that went on there was digging out the platforms.
Nawamis. That's right, Ben. That's definitely what it was.
See, I told you he was in there and he knew it. Nawamis. So that one possibility is that those people associated with those points also were responsible for both of these objects, for both of these sites, Gobekli Tepe and the Sphinx. This is really interesting because all of you remember, Lehner's argument against the concept that the Sphinx was old when he was debating Robert Schoch, he was like, show me the potsherds. Well, we have pre-pottery Neolithic people building that are now associated with building massive megalithic stuff, and some of the points found in that area are also found in Egypt near the Sphinx.
That's the point I left out. I always forget to put that one in there. They're kicking their own ass.
Right.
Because they're telling us that this huge rock cut and megalithic stuff can be built by people that didn't have pottery.
Right.
And before that, when Robert Schoch
was saying
this thing
was show me the potsherds.
This thing's 12,000 years old. Well, you got to show me the potsherds first.
Yeah. What civilization? No. Where are the potsherds? Well, guess what? You just associated. Now you have the Taj Tepe civilization.
That's pre-pottery.
Pre-pottery.
Yeah. that's another
show me the
part.
fucking potsherds.
Yeah, that's another part of the
Pisses me
longer
off.
presentation goes into the technology of pottery and how in some cases it can be considered a technological advancement over working into these stone bowls by hand, right?
Yeah.
Like obviously if you need a vessel and you develop firing pottery, like dude,
This
you've
is an
made
advancement,
You've
yeah.
made a technological advancement, and you can look at that civilization and say, aha, they
Yeah.
made it past this grinding yourself out by hand a stone vessel.
Yeah.
But then, so that's why it's this important contrast. It's like, well, then when you look at the extremely hard stone and then the extremely precise geometry of these things, now we're talking about something else. It's a different proxy that's telling you that there was a higher advancement.
Yeah.
The proxy is the geometry and the hardness of stone.
Right.
So
The other possibility with the Helwan points being spread across the whole area is, I think, the one that you were initially talking about which is that these people revered both of these places,
yes,
and lived near them because those sites were there.
yeah, the Sphinx. If the Sphinx was there,
They didn't build them.
yeah. This was the other thing I was thinking about, like when that Sphinx was excavated by the pharaoh, who put his name on the
Tutmosis.
yeah, not the dream stele between the paws of the Sphinx. He excavated it. He tells the story like,
I did some
I slept
archaeology.
here, and
Yeah.
like the Sphinx told me, like, dig me out. Yeah, bro. I'll make you a king. So he digs it out, and then I'm wondering, like, where did all that midden go? Because just like
yeah.
Gobekli Tepe, it could have been buried in midden,
Yeah.
not just sand.
Yeah.
Obviously, it had sand on it, but if it was 12,000 years ago, it was savanna or whatever it was, and that could have been filled full of midden
Yeah.
from the pre-pottery Neolithic.
Yeah.
And then he digs it out, and it's just all these same
archaeology
stuff,
destroyed.
tossing it in the river, dude.
Yeah.
Screw it.
That's why Helwan points are found there.
Well, they were. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. But it'd be interesting to see. So I've been looking at all these other lithic sites, because the fact that these lithics just aren't really studied that much in Egypt. Like no one cares, pretty much. They've done these studies up in the highlands, in the high desert above Abydos, that were just looking for, like, well, how many artifacts are in a meter radius? So they get a huge group of people and they walk across the desert and stop every 50 paces or whatever and draw a 1 meter circle, and you just pick every single artifact up off the surface and count them and write the number down and then go on. They didn't do an analysis on the artifact types, other than they just said, well, they're really old. They're like 20,000 years old or something.
But you can walk in the desert out there and just stop and pick up a bunch of artifacts
Dude,
from a 1 meter circle.
I got the maps.
Oh my God. I also don't care about the numbers. Let's go do it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, bro, I am there.
Yeah.
I am in that place. I found one. I found the highest concentration area, and like, I got it on my map. So I'm just saying, like, they didn't really do an analysis of the typology, other than to say, like, roughly, like, well, we're talking like these were really old,
20,000.
tens of thousands of years old, possibly, right? So, just Paleolithic or whatever you call it. But they don't really care. They just walk along and do this one survey. It was like decades and decades ago. I don't think anybody's even
Was
done
it just
anything.
like an attempt to find out what the population was or something?
Yes.
Okay.
They were looking to find out what were the populations, the densely populated, how, and then they discovered, like, wow, there was a lot more people up here than we thought.
Yeah. Man.
So I don't know. I feel like this is a huge rabbit hole, and there's like so many pieces to the puzzle, but I have no doubt that the pre-pottery Neolithic, like the oldest ones that were around building those very first rock walls 12,000 years ago, right after the end of the Younger Dryas, had either trade routes or knew about or encountered the people that were over in the Nile Valley. They had a presence there. The Helwan points go all the way to the Fayum. They've been found up in the high deserts above the Fayum where we were. So like they weren't just like right there. They were all over that valley. And why shouldn't they be?
Yeah. They were just named after that section because that's where they were first identified.
That's where the first points were identified. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not very many, just a few. And now you couldn't find anything there because it's all streets and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's fascinating. So,
but the two different those various different points, like the ones that are so prevalent in Gobekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe and the other sites we visited there, are pretty different from the Helwan. They don't have the
the hell, I haven't found one yet.
Yeah.
I've never seen one at Gobekli Tepe.
Yeah.
Now maybe it's because they are from the oldest layers, and so they're way down there. So we don't find them just walking around on the surfaces.
Yeah, I guess what the point I'm making is they look a little more what I would think of as less crude. They're a little more
advanced hafting style.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting too, because it's like they lose it after a while. It kind of just
I don't know about fluting, but they have the narrowing of the neck, and then there's the two that
they're notching it.
They're notching it with the teeth at the back, whereas those other points are it's basically just really rudimentary, right? And like you said, that might be a product of they're just like, these are so easy to make, and you can stab a deer with it, whatever.
Yeah. Actually, their lithics get better over time.
Yeah.
They start out pretty crude, like the older ones, and they do slowly, just minutely get like better at, they're doing more retouch, they're doing a little bit more interesting hafting styles and stuff like that, like at the very, very end.
But that original oldest style, like you said, is older than Homo sape.
That blade and flake technology? Oh yeah. Yeah.
So it's been basically the same for 300,000 years. So all of the sudden, that's what I'm saying. And at the oldest layers of Gobekli Tepe, you have this same style, right? But then now they're at this site. I don't know. Now they're at this site with this advanced, like more advanced. They're living amongst megaliths.
Yeah.
And suddenly their lithics, which haven't changed in 300,000 years, slowly start to change.
Yeah. Yeah, and they start making pillars like that. That's the other thing. They started trying to make pillars. Yeah. I think like when you look into the pre-pottery Neolithic B, if you were to say that they were the builders of the pillars, then they start out with the worst lithics and the best pillars.
Yeah.
And then over 2,000 years, they get the worst pillars and the best lithics.
Right. Better lithics.
Which makes no sense.
Right. Their lithics get better, the pillars get worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I tried to, there's not really an easy way to illustrate this because I don't have enough pictures. And when I tried to look up, you try to look up pre-pottery Neolithic B pillars. I was trying to look up the pillars that are in the domiciles.
Yeah.
And you just can't find photos of them.
It's just our pictures.
Yeah. I went through mine and I'm just like, God, like these are horrible. Like because I wasn't also not looking at them.
Yeah.
Right?
Like whatever. Those are pieces of
cool
shit.
Guys don't look at pre-pottery Neolithic B pillars. You know?
Yep.
So yeah, I just couldn't illustrate the point, but yeah. And then when it comes to the lithics, like they do get better. But you really have to. You have to be
a lithic nerd,
yeah,
to see the improvement. Yeah.
So I was like, this is not a good point to make. But that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't make sense in so many ways. Yeah.
Well, hey,
we need to thank
I wanted
people.
to thank Edfu. He's donated several times with comments. But the last one, he said, with the Helwan points helping to date Gobekli Tepe, can we call Mark Lehner now and say we found something better than potsherds for him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the point. Where are the potsherds? Well, how about these megaliths?
Yeah. Also, Ed Poo, I gotta thank you, man. Like he was trying to tell me this thing
Oh,
about
he
how
loved your maps and the slopes. So yeah.
they were building this. He was like, dude, they're building circles. You know, they're building the walls inside the other wall. Like
Yeah.
the structure was getting smaller and smaller over time. And I was like, what? I finally found that paper. Golly, it was a huge pain in the ass to find these papers, but I got them. Anyways, yeah, those maps were great, and thank you for bringing that up, dude. And then we got Rex, $20. Thanks, bro. Unfinished beers.
Yeah, that's every beer of mine is unfinished.
Cheers, bro. Thank you very much. Yeah. Yeah, I love that map of the. I think it's so cool, dude, because I would love to see if they excavated around that one giant pillar that's on the outer ring of enclosure C.
Yeah.
Go all the way to the bottom. Is it freestanding? See, when you go and look at those main enclosures, what we're looking at, the surface of the bedrock that they've excavated out, that's not the original floor. Like, there's a little bench wall there, but the floor would have been much bigger.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yep.
So maybe there are sockets out here that are completely covered in rock walls now.
Yeah.
And other structures, because then pre-pottery Neolithic B comes along, they start building on top of other rock walls and things that are older and start making terrazzo floors. They started making like the little tile floors and stuff.
I was thinking the same thing when you were showing the maps. Like, I would like to know what the outer edges of the rock cut platforms look like.
Yeah. There's a really great diagram also of, you know, they're guessing at where the bedrock steps up, but there has to be a massive step up on this bedrock to get up to the other part that they're excavating up above the walkway. There's like the other covered area up on the hill.
Yeah.
There's probably a freaking 30 or 40 foot cliff.
Yeah.
So really you would have had like this cliff, like imagine back in the day, like there would have been a cliff wall and you're up there looking down on these just massive 3 standing stone circles. Like we just don't know what it looked like.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, people want it fully excavated, but really I think what people want, I think they don't understand what they're looking at. Like maybe I'm wrong, but it's like the stuff that you're looking at down in there is all architecture.
Yeah.
There's no more midden down there.
Right.
They've excavated all the midden out.
Yeah.
It's all architecture now. So to excavate anything else means you're just removing buildings.
Right. Well, I think they want the rest of the midden pile excavated outside of what's
People think that the inside of that enclosure area is not fully excavated.
Oh, well, it is.
I know that they're like sitting there like and they're uncovering, like they uncovered that like big boar statue that was up at the very back end.
Yeah.
But that's like on the edge of the excavation area.
Yeah, it's in the edge.
But yeah, I would still.
I also think the other thing
part of me wants to like destroy that pre-pottery Neolithic B
dude,
stuff.
Get rid of the walls.
I would love to see that. Yeah.
They
won't do it.
No, they won't. I mean, get a detailed LiDAR map of the whole thing, and then get the walls out of there. And
they think that they're made by the same. They think that those people built that.
Right, so they won't. Yeah, they won't because they think it's part of the pillar site. But I'm like, well, can we see the entire platform? Because we know that it's multiple walls sitting. I mean, like, right, sitting on top of the platform. And like you're saying, there could be a massive cliff wall that maybe part of it was natural, but they dug it out to make this area to put all the circles in. Then I also think like the thing that gets overlooked a lot is that flattened platform out in the open.
Yes.
On the edge of the hill. Right?
Yeah.
That somebody did a bunch of bedrock work there too and made at least one pedestal.
Yeah.
And it's like, that would be the
That's
one you could
so
see from
old,
everywhere.
bro.
Yeah.
That one has to be so old because it's just like worn away
Yeah.
on the edge of the hill.
Yeah. It's worn away on the edge. And it's been exposed. It was never covered in midden.
That's the other thing. It was not covered in midden. I think they robbed all the pillars from whatever was over there.
Yeah.
Or maybe that one was just never completed. Maybe that was like the next one.
Could be.
and they never completed it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really strange. Because they're, the slots in those pedestals are like barely even. It's almost just kind of like they were just like, here's the outline for the place.
Yeah.
And they hadn't really cut down yet.
Yeah.
Because it's literally right next to the top of bedrock. You know what I
Right.
mean? It only goes down like a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas Karahan and Gobekli Tepe are just way down.
Dug way down
Yeah.
in. Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, man.
yeah.
That's fantastic.
Thank you. And thank all of you. I hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Next time, we should do yours.
Yeah. We'll do mine next.
All right.
Yeah. People, Hugh brought up the Sabians and that. Like, I bring up some of that in my presentation, which was supposed to go along with Kyle's and Ben's and everyone else's. We were trying to, like, with the New York event, we were sort of putting together a coherent, everybody's presentation connected in some way to everybody else's. And yeah, I did bring up the Sphinx and the Sabians and stuff.
Cool.
Actually, a few of the quotes I have in my presentation come directly from the Andrew Collins article that he was talking about with the Sabians.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he talked about Hugh was bringing up the point that in Turkey there's all this underground stuff as well, which is another thing I want to do one of these days. Maybe when we do the next episode on the cart ruts, I want to show people that quarry, the underground cave quarry.
Oh my God, that place was insane.
Bazda, I think it was.
Yeah, Bazda Caves.
Bazda Caves. We need to show people that, like, the amount of digging underground that these people did was just phenomenal. Now Ben's saying he only got halfway through his.
Everyone wants the paper.
We all stole.
have his
We all stole.
Email
minutes
us,
from
bro.
Ben.
I'll attach it to it. We all stole what?
We all stole time from Ben. He was the last presentation.
Hey, I did mine in 30 minutes, bro.
Yeah. He told me I could take 10 minutes from him, and I did. All right. Let's wrap it up. Thank you guys so much
appreciate it.
for joining the live. Once again, I'll just bring up that harvest has started, where we are processing grapes today. So it's a super busy period for us, and we're also still trying to complete the winery building at the same time as doing harvest. Hopefully, we'll be able to do part of our harvest in our new building. Hopefully.
Oh, that's gonna happen.
Kyle's determined for it to happen.
We just needed electricity.
Yeah,
I
somebody
need to
needs
plug some stuff
We
in.
need to run an extension cord from the other side of the property.
Nope, that won't work.
I know.
480 volt, three phase.
being dramatic.
Like, there's nowhere to plug it in. Literally, there's nowhere.
Nowhere. Yeah.
Has to come from a freaking giant transformer.
Right. Yeah.
So we're gonna get some plugs, and then we've got all this awesome equipment. And we'll get to process some grapes there, but then we'll be hauling them off to.
Yeah. If we get to
Ferment
run
them.
our new sweet new winemaking equipment this year, I'll post some videos.
It would make the job so much easier,
God,
dude.
The crap we're working with right now is
I was trying not to start swearing, just like
I know both of us get so you're just like, God damn it. So we're gonna have our own place where we are in control of all the equipment, and it's the equipment we want, and it's gonna be amazing.
and it'll be
And we'll be swearing at Willie, what who the fuck decided to buy this piece of shit? Eventually something will happen. Hopefully not, but I mean all the equipment looks great, but
I don't think I'll be mad at the place.
no
or the equipment.
No, because it's any mess there will be our mess.
Yep.
That's the main thing. You know.
It's gonna be nice. Thank you guys. Oh wait, we can't leave yet. I don't have my bumper music lined up.
Oh.
I was busy doing other stuff. But
Yeah, so
dude.
thank you guys all for supporting the show, for watching it. And again, we will be publishing episodes when we can during the month of harvest. So thank you all so much. We love you.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work.